a video captured on board that JetBlue flight on which the pilot, deemed disoriented, was locked out of the cockpit, eventually subdued by passengers, has now resurrected questions about basic airline safety. Captain Sully Sullenberger has spoken out about airline safety and the industry since 2009, when he successfully commandeered a U.S. Airways flight onto the Hudson River. He's got a new book out this May titled Making a Difference, Stories of Vision and Courage from America's Leaders. And Captain Sully joins us now. Welcome to In Business, Captain. It's wonderful to get to talk to you. What did you think when you heard this incident on board that JetBlue flight and you saw that video?
Well, good morning, Margaret. Thanks for having me on. Like every American, I was very surprised. This is an extraordinarily rare event. I've been flying for 45 years. I was an airline pilot for over 30. I've never heard of anything like this happening before. I'm very glad that we had a very qualified first officer, the co-pilot in the cockpit, who recognized this quickly, took appropriate action, and landed the airplane safely. One of the things we're working on right now on Capitol Hill and with the FAA is to improve the minimum amount of flying experience a pilot has to beat to have to be an airline pilot.
You know, I mean, you say this is an unheard of occurrence. It's certainly a rare one from our reporting. And the reason that we're talking about it is because the stakes are just so high, even if this is rare. The FAA only requires pilots to choose to disclose any mental health issues. They're not actually reviewed for them. Do you believe that that's the right approach?
I do, and let me tell you why. If we make it more punitive, we'll drive people underground. What we're relying upon is the professionalism of the pilot group. And let me tell you, pilots are one of the most professional groups and already one of the most scrutinized professional groups there are. And in addition, we have in place some peer professional standard committees that take into account what people's behavior is like. We have the company officials who can do that. The FAA at any time can come in and give a no-notice check ride and require you to demonstrate your knowledge, your judgment, your competence. And let me also describe what the work environment is like in the cockpit in an airliner, especially after September 11th when we're locked into the cockpit for so many hours at a time. You're locked in a little cubicle with someone else for 15 hours a day. In close proximity, you observe everything they do, everything they say, every little quirk and interaction is noticed, and if something is amiss, you'll take action and do something about it. Nothing goes unnoticed in that environment.
Well, and since 9/11, pilots have been allowed to carry firearms if they chose to do so. In this incident, in many ways, it appears to be lucky that the pilot was not. Does that make you question that standard?
No, it doesn't. And let me also, there are some pilots who have been selected and gone through even a much more intense scrutiny to become a federal flight deck officer, essentially an air marshal. They go through hours of application, weeks of psychological testing, in-depth background investigation, weeks of training before they're allowed to carry the firearm, and only in the cockpit. So I think the program we have works really well, and I'm very glad that in this case, the airplane was able to be landed safely because this was such an extraordinary event.
If it's a matter of choice for a pilot to disclose a mental health issue or strains, you talk about it perhaps being punitive if you regulate that more and force reviews. But if someone were to come forward and just say, you know, I've been a little depressed, or, you know, I'm having this stress at home, would that prevent someone from flying?
It depends on what the diagnosis is, but it might. And so we have to make it a very easy thing to do, and we have to make it as least as harmful in the career as possible. And so we do that. We have professionals who can intervene. We have a protocol in place where there is a way to get better and to come back to work. But yes, there would be a time period when you would not be allowed to fly.
Now, there is also some scrutiny right now about the standards that pilots and crews are performing under in terms of sleep, in terms of stress. Is there a difference for a unionized crew versus a non-unionized crew, and what it's like when one of them gets into the cockpit?
There certainly are differences, and we've seen that around the world and in this country as well. What we've relied upon historically in the industry is the airlines doing the right thing and operating at a level above the regulatory minimums, which are really rock bottom. And many of those, many of the things we've done above the minimum have been because of collective bargaining agreements, union agreements that have required more rest, required more training, required better procedures than the regulations themselves require. As we've seen more economic pressure put on the airlines, some of these union agreements have been watered down or abrogated, and that reduces the margin of safety above the minimums. So yes, having a union crew, you have a better level of confidence that you have had more rest, better training, and better procedures.
All right. Captain, it was wonderful to talk to you. Thanks very much for giving us
Good being with you,
information.
Margaret. Thank you.